Well, let's talk about Jane Goodall and the change she left behind. As you've been hearing, the celebrated primatologist and environmentalist has died. She was 91. She spent decades living amongst chimpanzees in the mountains of Tanzania. Now, you have to think back. People did not research animals this way. She changed everything about the way we looked at animals. When she was just 26, she discovered they used tools, challenging everything we thought we knew about animal behavior, as one example. A scientist turned activist, she would spend the rest of her life traveling the world, raising awareness about the effects of climate change. According to the Jane Goodall Institute, she was in the United States on a speaking tour, as I alluded to, when she died of natural causes, we understand. Well, Stefan Peterson's here to start the show this morning, Director of Conservation and Research at our Assiniboine Park and Zoo. Good morning.
Good morning.
So what do you think about when you're remembering Jane Goodall and her work?
Yeah, I never knew her personally, but I got to listen to her talk when she was in Winnipeg in 2017, and her impact kind of touches a few places in my life, both in her research and the way she changed how we think about animals and how we do animal behavior research, and then her conservation, and especially the way that she was always a strong supporter of really good accredited zoos. So recognizing all of the work, obviously I work in a zoo, so that's a message that I want out there. But also there's a real impact that people have on wildlife, and she just kind of catalyzed so many people towards that.
What does that mean? Like when you think about the work that you do, to have someone like that, who's so influential and important, globally, that she changes people's views. So when you're at the dinner table talking about animal behavior, the work that you do with animals, it's just fascinating that understanding may have come, from her.
Yeah, it really is. Like, most of the scientists that I might really think highly of their work, I can't talk to my mom about it. She'll never have heard them. But, Jane Goodall was one of the people that, would come into conversations, and we could talk about kind of the interesting things that she had been observing or that she was trying to accomplish in terms of, conservation and advocacy for animals.
When you talk about her impact here in Winnipeg, as you were saying, Stefan, she affected you on a couple of fronts. But you mentioned that, when she would talk about the importance of, I think your word was accredited zoos. So forgive me if I got that wrong, but tell me why that's important.
Yeah, so I guess there's a whole a bunch of kinds of zoos, and some are good and some are less good, I guess. And the industry standard in North America really is between Canada, the US, and more broadly, the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, and it's an accrediting body. And Jane Goodall is a strong supporter of that accrediting body because not only do they have really high standards, they have a commitment to always improve that for the animals and for the conservation, so wild animals, not just the animals in the zoo, and on public education. So our zoo, we've been accredited 3 times by AZA. Just most recently, last month, we heard that we had successfully done that. That's every 5 years. But also AZA zoos in Canada had been working together with animal rights groups to improve the legislation in Canada. So we had a Jane Goodall Act that was put forward. I think it died on the books at the last election, but we're hopeful that that sort of legislation that protects animals really can come into effect in Canada.
What do you think her legacy is when it comes to conservation? And by the way, it's okay if your cat's in the shot. It's kind of appropriate, actually. Let the cat in. Maybe the cat's got something to say.
She does.
You talked about conservation. She was so ahead of her time. I mean, really, right? What do you think her legacy will be? And I guess also it's a two-barreled question, but what needs to happen to preserve it? Because science right now is under attack.
Yeah. So she was she worked on a number of fronts, recognizing kind of biodiversity loss and climate change as big impacts. She had a special passion for like primate and keeping chimps and other primates really protected. And I think so. There's programs that she established in Canada that I think are really great. She had a Roots and Shoots program that really focused on youth and getting them connected and active in their communities. And then just her presence and her impact has touched all the scientists probably working in wildlife biology and conservation throughout Canada and beyond. And I think it's in all those people and all their actions, that's really where we see that continuation. I'm sure the Jane Goodall Institute will continue doing great work in her honor, but yeah, that impact in people and their decisions and how they value and think about animals is really the thing that I think is going to last.
Thank you so much for being up early to talk about Jane Goodall this morning. We really appreciate you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
That is Stephen Peterson, the Director of Conservation and Research over at our Assiniboine Park and Zoo. And by the way, he was mentioning when Jane Goodall was in Winnipeg. And he was also mentioning Roots and Shoots, which was to teach young people something she was passionate about, to teach them about animals. When she was in Winnipeg, we had the opportunity to connect Jane Goodall with some young Manitobans. So we went into our archives to find that piece of our show that we had on. And we will play that for you coming up later this hour on Information Radio.